On this week's episode of the Pigskin Cafe, we're going to be recapping week one of college football. We're going to talk about all the marquee matchups, Georgia Clemson, Miami Florida, Texas A&M Notre Dame, and let you know what our biggest takeaways are and what we can expect going forward.
Welcome to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast where Hampton, Chase, and Graham break down all things college football. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
They had to win this game.
There's a problem. This one's tough.
We are back.
That's what my gut's telling me.
I genuinely could not believe it.
You don't live in the great state of Texas.
All right, big boy. Hold my sweet tea.
What are we doing?
That is a stat there, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper, and usually I have Chase and Graham Haney joining me, but today I have a very special guest. I've got Auburn, a.k.a. Big Papa Shep, hopping in the cafe today while Graham and Chase are enjoying a nice little vacay. And I thought, who better to break down a little college football week one? Shep, welcome in the cafe, man. How are we doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. I promise. No, nothing too spicy today. Week one can't go too crazy. But thanks for having me, Hampton.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Glad to have you on board. And what a weekend it has been, and it's not over yet. At the time of this recording, LSU and USC have not played, and Boston College and Florida State have not teed it off either. But that doesn't mean that we didn't have a full slate of games on Saturday, and then we also had some on Thursday and Friday. So what we're going to do in this show, we're going to open up with a few brief thoughts about Alabama versus Western Kentucky, and then we're going to dive into more of our overarching takeaways from the weekend, because even though there were some matchups that didn't live up to the hype in our opinion, there is still a lot that we can break down and look into, and that has ramifications for the rest of the season. So before I even get into Alabama, I did want to say the Colorado game on Thursday night, that and UNC Minnesota might have been two of the better games of the weekend. I was super impressed by Shedeur Sanders. He looks to have taken another step in his development. Travis Hunter may be the best receiver in the country, or the best player in general, with what he can do on both sides of the ball. Their defense still has a lot of work to do. I know they improved in the second half, and they kind of seemed to stymie North Dakota State a little bit more. But, man, if you just look at their D-line, they are so small. For a FBS Division I D-line, I think that might be their pitfall again this year, along with that O-line, even though it was a little bit better than the past. So I was impressed with them, and I think Shedeur and Travis Hunter are going to be one of the best combos to watch as we proceed into the year. But I want to get to Alabama, Western Kentucky, and we're not going to, deep dive this, because there's really not a whole lot to deep dive. I mean, there is if you want to go through every player, but overall, great debut by Kalen DeBoer and company. They came out, they took care of business, but I thought for me, I'll give you three quick takeaways. Number one, I was super impressed by the defense. I know it's Western Kentucky, but guys were flying around, guys were making plays. Keon Sabb had 2 picks in the first quarter. I thought he displayed a lot of range and playmaking ability that we haven't really had at the safety position in quite a while. I thought he was really, really impressive. Quay Russaw stood out. Number 4, playing that wolf position. He was used in many, many ways, and I thought he kind of showed his versatility, his motor, and his knack for making a big play. Jahad Campbell was huge. Thought James Smith, defensive lineman, he flashed multiple times when he was in the game, so I was really impressed by the defense. Offensively, Ryan Williams, Shep can attest, in our group message, I said before the game, I said he's going to score a touchdown tonight, and what did he do? His first 2 catches in the Alabama uniform, he got 2 touchdowns, and I think by the end of the year he's going to be Alabama's number 1 receiver. It may be even before that. The kid's just dynamic. He's special. He has it. Whatever it is, he has it. To be a 17-year-old kid in your first college game, to do that, and he's been doing it since he stepped foot on campus, so really impressed with him. And then my third takeaway, I don't want to sound any alarms. I'm not pressing the panic button. but I'm just kind of interested to see as we move forward with Jalen Milroe. I know he had a great statistical game. I don't think he played bad by any stretch of the imagination. There were some things in that game, though, that were eerily similar to last year, and I did not see the leap that I was expecting to see from him. He still held on the ball too long at times. Lack of pocket presence was there. And those things against a better team are going to cause problems for Alabama. I know they were pretty vanilla on offense. They were very explosive. Again, not saying he played a bad game, but there's just some things that are at the core that I think are going to come back to bite Alabama in a few games. So those are kind of my takeaways real quick from the Alabama game, Shep. What are yours before we kind of dive into the rest of the action?
Yeah, I'd say anybody who knows me, I'm a Milroe man. So you can quote me as that. Shout out to Chase. Shout out to Chase. Love you. I think you were spot on. I think he did hold the ball at times a little too long. I think you saw a little more touch at times, and I think you also saw him feel a little more comfortable to kind of move around to run. And I don't know if that was by design, or if he just started seeing open field and decided, hey, I think I could get some more yards, because last year that was not necessarily the case at times. I think you're spot on about Hollywood Williams. Hey, shout out to Roll Tide Willie. He secured Ryan Williams for us. Man looked very special, and that was really impressive. But my biggest thing, hey, Caleb Downs, we're missing you. But not anymore. Not anymore. Everybody was missing him through training camp. Yeah, Caleb who? Man's a great player, but hey, Keon Sabb looked phenomenal last night. The defense, defense hasn't been flying like that, I'd say, in a couple of years. They look to be swarming. Had a couple of times where the defensive player hit their own player. They were trying to hit them so hard. Just really great to see. And then my last takeaway, man, that Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, that combo. 9 rushes. They had 9 rushes for right at 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. Listen, I'm with you. I know it's Western Kentucky, but still, that's impressive out of 2 of your top backs. You're talking less than five or less carries, and they're 150 yards. That's impressive. We're in a new era, DeBoer era, but it really looked like old Alabama era. Defense swarming, running the ball, explosive plays. It was amazing to see.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It did feel, and I know the defense last year I thought was a really good unit. I thought they kept Alabama in a ton of games, and I thought they were borderline elite for the majority of the season. But I don't know, there was a different tenacity, different energy on the field last night. Again, it's Western Kentucky, but I was really impressed with what I saw from that unit. And on top of that, I thought it was really interesting, kind of the contrast in approaches between Saban and DeBoer. Saban would rotate players, but we played 11 DBs in the first half last night. That never happened under Saban. We had 2 or 3 freshmen out there at one time. King Mack got some run. Bray Hubbard came in, and I thought did a really good job. So you can see the coaching staff, that being a little bit of a change of philosophy, but also trying to develop that depth. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the last point on Milroe, he did look more willing to run. He looked more comfortable doing it. I would push back a little bit in the fact of when we played Middle Tennessee State last year, he did the same type thing, and he did it against other teams that I think were inferior. It was against the teams that had maybe a little more stout defense, that could be a little more physical. I felt that was when he was a little more hesitant to run. So I'm hoping that what we saw last night is a precursor for things to come, because he has to use his legs. If he doesn't use his legs, then it's like playing with the arm tied behind your back. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see that going forward and the adjustments that they make, because even though it was a really good game for the most part, there are plenty of areas to clean up, plenty of opportunities to improve. So Alabama takes on South Florida next week, and I'm already looking forward to it. So let's dive in to week one as a whole. And we had some really interesting games, some really interesting outcomes, some that I expected, some that I didn't. And I want to get from you, give me two big takeaways from the weekend. And it can be game-based or it can be a season outlook that you think has changed based off what has happened in week one.
Yeah, I think I think I'm going to have to be the guy to bring out the takeaways. That's the hot seat takeaways. I really feel like I really feel like Dabo. I don't see him at Clemson after this year. I know he loves little old Clemson. I know
you think he's going to get fired?
I'm not saying he's going to get fired. Let me rephrase. But I think he's going to need a change of scenery. I don't think he's going to get fired per se, but I think if jobs come open that are interested in him, he's fielding that call 2, 3, 4 times. I mean, I think he's at the point where he's kind of living off the coattails of Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence at this point. I mean, they haven't developed players. They look horrid on offense. Klubnik, bless him, I don't know what he was doing yesterday, but he wasn't playing football. And at some point, it comes back on the coaching. I mean, at some point, it's coming back to that. Now, I'm going to give them some grace. First half, what was it, 6-0? 6-0 the first half against Georgia. Hey, anybody will take that. But the second half, I don't know if they ate ice cream and celebrated during halftime or what, but they looked even worse. And Georgia, just old steady Georgia, they came smash mouth, and then by the third and fourth quarter, they were just ready for you. So I really think Dabo, by the end of the year, if things don't change and change quick, he is going to be ready for a change of scenery. And I don't know if that's coming from the president of the school or coming by his own liking. And then the second thing I would say is another hot seat, man. I love this man. There's 2 people at my church actually who have signed Troy jerseys by this man that I've tried to get for years. I would love one. If you have one, you're a listener and you have a signed Troy Neal Brown jersey, hit me up. But man, West Virginia, we have been hyped up by our fan favorite, by one of the personalities of college football, and Pat McAfee, to think that West Virginia was going to come out here and just demolish Penn State. I mean, we heard so much about Garrett Green. His legs have been great, but his passing is now improved. And it was like, man, what spring practice are y'all looking at? What are we watching? And I love Neal Brown. Hey, come back to Troy. I mean, Jared Parker, big fan. But, hey, I love Neal Brown. But
are you after yesterday?
Dude, well, yeah. But he is definitely got to be on the hot seat. And I don't know if it's by his choosing on this one. Now, Dabo, I think, could be on his own choosing. But Neal, if Neal has another average season, he's kind of been on the hot seat before. I'm just thinking, man, I love Neal Brown, but, man, if those West Virginia Mountaineers can't turn it around or look any better offensively, and he's a big offensive mind, they're going to have some big issues in Morgantown.
So to your 2 points, I think those are great takeaways. I'll hit Neal first. I think he just got a contract extension through 2027. I don't think he's going anywhere unless this season is an abject failure. I don't think you're going to get canned for losing to Penn State like he did. It happened last year. Same thing. And they ended up going 9-4, and they had a really good year, especially for West Virginia. And the Big 12 is wide open. It's to not affect them in the Big 12 race. Ultimately, they're just not as talented as Penn State, and it showed over and over and over again. What really killed them was before the half. The before the half sequence, which should have been PI, by the way, on the receiver when he caught the ball 60 yards downfield. That was a full extension push off. Should have happened, but then you give up a touchdown with like 5 seconds left. then you're deflated going into the half, and instead of down 7, you're down 14, and they can never recover. They're not a team that can play from behind, especially when guys like Abdul Carter are on the other side of the ball for Penn State, and that defense is going to keep attacking you and attacking you and attacking you. So I'm not as down on Neil Brown as you are. I think West Virginia still has a chance to have a really good season. I just think it was a tough week 1 matchup, and I think a lot of people, including myself maybe, and for you for sure, thought they might have been a little further along than they actually are.
Yeah.
And that's just, a sad reality, but they still have a chance to have a really, really good year. They're probably not going to see a defense like that again on their schedule, unless maybe a team like Utah. Utah always has a pretty stout unit, really well coached, but I still am high on the Mountaineers. I think they can rebound from this, and hopefully Neil can keep them going up. If you get another 9-10 win year, that's good for West Virginia. Just got to keep chopping wood, man. Got to keep chopping wood. On Dabo, I know you mentioned him, and I know you asked, what happened in the second half. Well, the clock is ticking on him. The clock is ticking, but what happened in the second half was it showed everything that I've said about Dabo. It showed his stubbornness coming into reality. With they simply just wore down. They don't have the depth that they once did. I mean, they hung punch for punch for Georgia in that first half. I thought their defense played outstanding. Now their offense was stinky Bo Dinky. Kate Klubnik is just not a good quarterback. I know he has a lot of tools. I know he can run, and I get he was playing a good defense, and I know, that the receiving talent around him might not be what it once was, but that was supposed to be an improvement from last year, and I saw the same guy. To me, he doesn't see the field well. He doesn't make good decisions. His football IQ is questionable at times.
He had
and
less
that
than
really
150 passing yards.
How many?
Less than 150. I think it was like 140.
It was 142. Yep, yeah. You're right. It was 142. That's unacceptable. And you would coming into the game that you're not going to be able to run the ball very effectively because Georgia has a really stout unit up front and on their whole defense. So the game kind of has to be on him, and he just simply didn't step up to the plate and hit a home run. He didn't even bunt to get on first base. I mean, it was just bad all the way around. I still see him struggling when he gets pressured, not knowing where to go with the ball, not knowing where his hot is. And as I know it's the second year starting, but he's a junior at this point. At some point, we got to see some progression in your development. And I'm not going to write them off in the ACC because, frankly, the ACC looks really, really weak, especially after week 1, save for one team that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But ultimately, them not utilizing the transfer portal to help supplement that roster is just coming back to bite Dabo in the butt over and over and again. And I believe I saw a stat since 2020, Dabo's like 3-8 against like AP top 10 or something like that. And I may have that stat wrong, but there's a clear regression in after Trevor Lawrence and some of that talent that he had on that roster. After they left, they have not been the same. And I know he will tell you otherwise, and he believes what he believes, and I'm all for a man being a principal, but he has to change. He has to change, or Clemson is going to continue to go in the direction they're going. Peter Woods, I want to give a shout-out to him. He was a game wrecker on that D-line for Clemson. Georgia had to start doubling him because they couldn't really run the ball at all, especially in that first half, up the gut. Now, the adjustment that Georgia made going into the second half, they started really attacking the edges. They did that through the RPO game. They had a couple, an RPO flat. They had an RPO wheel with Arian Smith. They did a reverse using Dylan Bell in that, and that really kind of opened up their offense a little bit. big picture wise, I think their defense is still stout. I think their offense might miss Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers more than we assumed going into the year, because we thought, somebody will just step up. And not saying that they don't have guys, but I didn't see any clear difference makers like, hey, I got a game plan for this dude, other than Nate Frazier, that running back, the freshman out of Modern Day, California. That kid's going to be a star. You can tell he has a different juice, a different burst than the rest of the backs they had. I get Trevor Etienne did not play in that game, but he's going to be a focal point of that offense going forward because he has talent and he has things that you simply cannot coach. I know, they have Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky at tight end. Didn't think they made a huge impact on the game. Colby Young, the transfer from Miami, had a touchdown catch. He looked all right. I thought Carson Beck played solid. But offensively, I'm interested to kind of see their evolution as the season goes along. But they did play a good Clemson defense, and ultimately they were like a boa constrictor, man, in that second half, just slowly but surely choking the life out of Clemson. So I think those were two great takeaways. And before I give mine, I kind of have a couple, but I'm going to ask you a question that'll kind of lead in to two of my takeaways. First question I have is about the Notre Dame Texas A&M game. Full disclosure, I got this one wrong. I had A&M as a sleeper team in the SEC this year. Thought their schedule set up pretty nicely. I liked a lot of the returning talent they had. I loved the hire of Mike Elko and what he could do for that program. And what we saw last night did not give me a lot of confidence. And so, Shep, I want to kind of get your takeaway on that game. Did your opinion of either team change dramatically, or do you still think after that game that both of those teams are kind of mirrors of each other and that long-term their outlook for the season kind of is what it was coming into the season?
Yeah, I don't think this game changes anybody's opinion of what they thought each team was. I think with Notre Dame, you saw a team that wasn't going to really do anything super special on offense. They were going to just play old school football. They were going to line it up on defense and try to hit you in the mouth. And I think that's what you kind of saw throughout the game. So I don't think this win for Notre Dame makes anybody think, wow, they may be really good this year. I think most people who watch this game will realize, hey, Texas A&M might look a little worse than everybody thought they would. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, but Weigman, he looked rough. I mean, he was 12 for 30, nice. 12 for 30 for 100 yards and 2 interceptions. Like, this guy's been talked about as being a good A&M quarterback, like just a good average college football quarterback. And we're talking about 100 yards and 2 interceptions. Mm-hmm. I mean, and they were still in the game, which makes you look at Notre Dame and think, man, they're really not where we thought they were either. So I really don't think this changes the outlook much. It doesn't push the needle one way or the other for me. But I just think it was two teams that have had success in the past that scheduled a matchup thinking they were gonna be really big powerhouses, and they're average teams playing each other. It's kind of my takeaway.
Yeah, and I think that is right on the money, honestly. I will say my opinion of A&M has lessened. Yeah, because like you, Weigman, that was the biggest shocker of the game to me. Because if people forgot, when he played last year, when he got hurt, A&M was 3-1, and I believe their only loss was to Miami. I think Miami beat them, if I'm not mistaken, or did Miami lose to them? I'm pretty sure that Miami beat them.
I'm kind of thinking you're right.
Van Dyke had a huge day through the air. But Weigman played great in that game. And he kind of finally was like, this is Jimbo's quarterback. This is the guy that has all the upside, all the tools. And so coming into this year, I'm like, he's got more stability around him and Mike Elko and that coaching staff. I feel good about that. I feel pretty good about the weapons around him. Noah Thomas, Muhammad, Le'Veon Moss at running back. And I knew Notre Dame's defense was stout. Like, I knew it wasn't going to be a high-scoring game. But 12 of 30 for 100 yards and 2 picks, I didn't expect that performance. If you had told me that, Josh Pate has the thing on his show called a padlock stat, which means if you know that stat before the game, you kind of know who's going to win the game.
Yeah.
If you had told me Weigman went 12 of 30 for 100 yards and 2 picks, I'd have told you Notre Dame was going to win the game.
Yeah.
And that was the most shocking thing by a landslide. I wasn't shocked that A&M's defense was able to kind of keep them in the game. I think they played with a lot of heart. I thought they were flying around out there, and they made life difficult on Riley Leonard, who was playing with a very green offensive line, and not Irish green, but a green offensive line as far as experience. But they kind of hung in there, and by the end of the game, like the drive they went on to score the touchdown to go up 20-13, like they kind of bullied A&M. I mean, like Riley Leonard made some big throws, like that 3rd and 5. They send a blitz off the corner. He identifies it, throws it to his hot. Then he made another big throw, but then Jeremiah Lowe breaks off a 20-30 yard run to go in the end zone. And then on the final drive, he was consistently breaking tackles. And I think they kind of found a formula of, Jadarian Price, Riley Leonard, and Jeremiah Love. If they can kind of establish and be like a really gritty, physical, ball control team, they can make a lot of hay, especially with that defense that they have. Because, I mean, I don't think Riley Leonard was particularly effective through the air. I mean, 18 of 30 for 158. It's not lighting the world on fire. It's better than what Connor Weigman put out there. But honestly, they should have ran the ball more. They averaged 6 yards a carry. Yeah. So I'm shocked that they didn't commit to the running game more, because every time Love touched the ball, I was impressed with the physicality he ran with. He broke a lot of tackles, showed good burst. And for them, my opinion of them changes a little bit, because whoever won this game, the rest of their schedule was set up very nicely. And now Notre Dame kind of has, if they take care of business, they have a really, really good shot of getting in the college football playoff. But credit to them, credit to Marcus Freeman. I think he's done a really, really good job with that program, kind of establishing that type of that is not an easy place to go in and win. And they were not afraid of the moment. And when it came crunch time, they're the team that stepped up. They're the team that made plays. Riley Leonard was the guy who could be counted on those situations. So really interesting game, and I'm interested to see from A&M, my last thing on this, how do you evolve from this? Do you open up how do you get Connor Weigman more comfortable? Because this simply is not going to be a recipe for success with him playing this poorly. Granted, they're not going to see many defenses like this for the rest of the year, but he's got to step up. They've got to be more balanced on offense. Their defense is going to keep in a lot of games, but it was kind of a punch in the mouth in game 1 of Mike Elko. Let's see how he responds. Speaking of being punched in the mouth and being punched in the mouth repeatedly, we got to talk about Florida Miami.
It's not even a hot take.
You have a hot take?
It's not even a hot take anymore.
Okay, what you got?
He's gone, man.
Oh,
he's gone. That's not even a hot take. His seat's been warm since last year.
Well, here's the question. I want to expound on that a little bit. Answer this, and then I'll expound on your hot take that really isn't a hot take anymore. Does he make it through the year, or do they wait to the end of the year?
No, not with the way that the world works. Not in the way recruiting works. Not in the way that transfers work. In today's world, you quite literally have to get rid of a coach as soon as possible and start building a foundation for next year. If they let him go through the rest of this year, and I like Billy Napier. Hey, I'm a fan. Okay, did a great job at Louisiana. I'm a fan. But man, if you let him get through this year with the recruiting classes that he signed as head coach of Florida, you're doomed for the next 2 years because there's no development happening. There is a ton of just struggle happening within that program, and I don't know if it's the state Florida was in when he got there, because they were still good. They were getting talent. They would still play. I mean, they might not win, but they were going to give you the best they had. They were not, laying down without a fight. But it looks like he's recruiting quitters, man. I mean, they're just not. They're just nowhere near like. I don't know if Florida went crazy. I mean, they're in that lawsuit with the Rashada guy from Arizona State. But I don't know if they just decided, hey, we're going to throw all this NIL and see if that works and see what happens. But if that's the case, they're spending a lot of money for a struggling program. And so, in my opinion, they got to get rid of him early. Let somebody else get in. I don't know personally who would want to touch that job with a 10-foot pole at this point. But I mean, you got to have somebody. And I'm hey, what's up? You know what time it is? It's prime time. I'd love to see it happen down in Gainesville. But let's hear what you had to say about it.
So I agree with all that. I don't think he makes it through the end of the year. I think they fire him pretty early, maybe even halfway through the season, especially with the gauntlet of a schedule that they have. And I want to touch on the Florida side, but then I want to give Miami their due. But
yeah,
my biggest thing in that game that I noticed from the Florida side, one, they were completely outclassed from a coaching perspective. I'm saying from a coaching perspective, and Mario Cristobal is on the other sideline, who I don't believe is an elite in-game coach. No offense to Mario, I think Mario can recruit, but I've watched plenty of games coached by him and wondered, what in the heck are you doing? So they were completely outcoached, but also the talent gap was immense. And not only was the talent gap immense, the amount of unforced errors and mistakes that Florida made. I mean, they had 2 roughing the passer penalties. One was they were going to get off the field in the first drive of the game, and he hits them on third down, leads to 7. And then the other one led to points as well. And it's just like, this can't keep happening in year 3. If you're supposed to be a program builder, if you're supposed to be kind of more of a tactician type coach, and you're coming from the Saban tree, and these things continue to happen in year 3, that's not on the players, that's on the coach. And not only that, I thought, Graham Mertz, bless his heart, was getting completely obliterated again because their offensive line is just simply not up to par. Even though I will say I don't think he played well. I thought there were some passes that he absolutely could have hit that he usually hits, and he didn't, which they couldn't afford in this game. The lone bright spot that I saw was when DJ Lagway came in and led a touchdown drive, and you kind of saw potential, and you saw, hey, this guy could be a program changer. He can be that type of recruit, that type of player that gets recruits to flock to Gainesville, that can be the face of your program. But I highly, highly doubt that they're going to turn over the reins to him this year unless Graham Mertz is out for a considerable period of time with the injury he sustained yesterday. So that's kind of the Florida side. I mean, that to me, the lack of talent and the unforced errors that keep happening that are a hallmark of Florida's program at this point, that all points back to Billy Napier. And like you, I love Billy Napier. I think he's a great guy. He kind of looks in over his head. And not only does he look in over his head, you talked about the state of Florida when he got there. Before he got there, the 3 out of the past 4 years before he got there, Florida was playing in New Year's Six Bowls.
Yeah.
And then they fired a guy in the 4th season, and I saw a thing today. I think under Billy Napier, they're 11-15. Under Dan Mullen, they were 34-15, and they fired him. I know Dan Mullen didn't like to recruit, and he may have not won the big one all the time, but I can confidently say I think Florida might be in a better place today if Dan Mullen is the head coach, which I didn't think I'd say that 2 or 3 years ago, but here we are on September 1st, 2024. But on the Miami side, man, I know Florida is lacking for talent in a lot of areas, but my gosh, what a dismantling. I did not say it on our preview pod, and I'm just Hampton off the record sipper is saying that I had Miami winning the ACC coming into the year. I didn't believe in Florida State that much. I didn't believe in Clemson. And I knew with the talent that Miami had accumulated, at some point it had to shine through. They've been recruiting too well at key positions for that product not to hit the field. And it all kind of coalesced with Cam Ward coming from Wazoo, from Washington State. And brother, I knew, because I've seen him at Washington State play, but that might have been the best quarterback performance I saw all weekend. Over Shador, over Quinn Ewers, over Carson Beck, over Jalen Milroe. What he did yesterday, and didn't even look like he broke a sweat. I mean, he was 26 of 35 for 385, 3 touchdowns and a pick. And, the pick was him trying to be a little too cool for school and throw it back across his body. But, I mean, they've got weapons around him. I mean, Xavier Restrepo is a certified dude. They ran the ball pretty effectively. Their offensive line looked really, really good. Their defense was flying around. And from top to bottom, I want to give a shout-out to Wob on Twitter, because he said this as well. They look like an SEC program from top to bottom. And again, I know it's Florida. I know that Florida is not, their talent level is not what an SEC program like theirs should be. But that still was mighty impressive what they did yesterday. And I don't think, from what I've seen through 1 week, and, in week 1 we make observations, not conclusions, I don't see a better team in the ACC than Miami. If they stay healthy, if they take care of business, they should win the ACC. I honestly think the second best ACC team that I've seen is Georgia Tech. I mean, I'm just being honest, from the physicality that they have from Haynes King. I know Clemson they'll probably look a little bit different when they're not playing Georgia, but very impressed with Miami. Hats off to Mario. Congrats to their fans. They've been waiting for a team like this for a long time, and I think this is a year that we can officially say the U is back. And the main reason for that is Cam Ward being a culture changer at the quarterback position. What do you think about that, Shep?
Yeah, hey, I agree with you. I like your point about Miami is loaded with talent, and at some point that talent's got to pay off. And I think that was evident. Cam Ward, I mean, hey, he might win the Heisman this year. He'll be a finalist if he continues. I mean, he was impressive. I'm still a Milroe man, so I'm going for Milroe for Heisman. But hey, Cam Ward looked really good. Almost 400 passing yards. But man,
and he didn't even play the fourth quarter hardly.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, he just looked like he was out like at recess, 15-minute recess, and was about to go back to work, like crazy, just like effortless. But I think your point about the talent, man, Florida, I don't know who they're recruiting. I know who they're not recruiting, because that was pretty evident. But like you said, man, Miami's got some talent, and if they can, like you said, it's kind of hard to say, okay, well, is Florida just that bad and Miami just that good? or a little bit of both? I think it was a little bit of both. But I think Miami really
Agreed with
has
that, 100%.
I think Miami has a really good shot to win the ACC and contend for a playoff spot. That the talent they have accumulated was on display, and it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm really interested to see Miami get tested again and see how they respond. If they kind of keep building upon this week 1 win, and conversely for Florida, do you get back up off the mat?
Yeah.
Because Billy called it embarrassing. It was. How do you respond from here?
Yeah.
Let's do a few quick hitters on the way out. I want to mention specifically kind of a broad point, because I saw Auburn fans on Twitter freaking out over beating Alabama and A&M and saying we're going to be a problem this year. And I mean this genuinely and wholeheartedly. I'm not trolling. I'm not being an Alabama fan. But, like, when are we going to learn from our mistakes? That's a part of life, and it needs to be a part of fandom. Because for the past 4 years, man, Auburn beats the Powder Puff in week 1. The offense looks great. I mean, the whole running joke of Bo Nix has improved so much, he looks comfortable in this office, and we can see him in New York in December. It's a joke, but it's become a reality for Auburn fans after week 1 each and every year. Alabama and A&M is terrible. No offense to them. I'm sure they're a great group of kids, but when they play against Auburn, the gap is so wide, the chasm is deep, as wide as the Grand Canyon, man. And you can't make these grand sweeping observations after week 1, just like we're not after Alabama played Western Kentucky. We say a few things that you can kind of point out, players that you can highlight. The only thing that I will hear and agree with you is, hey, we got receivers this year. You do. I knew that coming into the year, that you had a much improved receiving core than you've had in the past. Everything else, just wait, take a step back, breathe, and let's see when you play a team that is above a 60 overall on College Football 25, how you look, and then we can make observations. I'm saying that lovingly. I'm not trolling. I just mean that in earnest. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, South Carolina, what are we doing? We almost lost to Old Dominion. I expected a lot more from Lenora Sellers. I didn't think he played pretty well from what I saw and observed, and clearly he didn't. You only beat Old Dominion by 4, so I wanted to note that. But I want to give a huge shout out to a particular team, and I want to make an apology to our listeners, because I said that a certain team was an underrated one going into the year, and by all accounts, on paper, they were. But that's why we don't play game on paper. It ain't paper football. It's actual tackle football. Virginia Tech, my gracious alive, what are we doing? I had you as a sleeper in the ACC, and you go to Nashville, the first sellout in years at Vanderbilt Stadium. They had to turn students away. You get down 17-0. You come all the way back. Your quarterback throws for 322 yards. You go into OT, and the Big V gives you the Big L.
Yes,
Diego Pavia from New Mexico State, who slayed Auburn last year, was putting in the work on Virginia Tech, man. Through the air, on the ground. The dude's a magician. Very electric, very fun to watch play the game of football. And Clark Lee, from all accounts, from everything I heard on TV yesterday, took a more hands-on approach with that defense. They looked improved, even though they kind of faltered there a little bit at the end. But what a win. I mean, they retooled their offense. And if anything else, even if Andy goes 4-8 the rest of the way, there's excitement in Nashville. Yeah. And every week, if Diego Pavia is playing, they're going to be a fun team to watch. And I just want to tip my hat to Vandy. We're a proud Vanderbilt supporting podcast here at the Pigskin Cafe. And what a win to kick off the 2024 season. But do you have anything to say on that, Shep? And do you have any other quick little tidbits that you want to hit the listeners with before we get on up out of here?
Yeah, a couple quick ones. Hey, I'm with you. hey, Auburn did play Alabama A&M. Let's not raise a national championship trophy. Same for Alabama with Western Kentucky.
Yep.
Same for Tennessee and Missouri. All right, let's pump the brakes. But I will agree. I'm with you. Hey, their wide receivers look good. They looked electric. Their run game is going to be solid with Jarquez. Defense has never really been a huge issue at Auburn. It's usually pretty decent.
Really hadn't.
And Peyton Thorne looked very capable. Now, like you said, they played Alabama A&M, so we'll see how that continues to progress. But hey, if I'm an Auburn fan, I'm excited for the potential of what this offense could be if they keep improving, and what they look like against a true Division I Power 5 school.
Mhm.
I would also like to highlight Oregon. Hey, what was up with that? I mean,
That was shocking.
we're barely squeaking by Idaho Vandals. We're talking about Idaho, the land of the potatoes. What? that was a
and
shocker.
The fact that Dylan Gabriel threw for a bazillion yards and
Yeah.
you still only won by 10? Confounding.
Yeah, that made no sense. And then my last takeaway, I want to give a shout out to a local Wiregrass native. Shout out to Bauer Sharp, first touchdown of the year. He's a tight end for Oklahoma, led their first scoring drive of the year. So he finished for five catches for 47 and a touchdown. Shout out Bauer Sharp.
All right, let's go Bowers. That's awesome, man. That is awesome. Well, speaking of awesome, I think we had an awesome episode breaking down week 1. Shep, it was great having you on the Pigskin Cafe, man. Hope to have you back again sometime soon. And you got any closing thoughts for the listeners out there?
Man, no closing thoughts. Ready to go. Great episode. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. There you go, man. All right, everybody. Well, we have enjoyed this episode of the Pigskin Cafe, and we want to let you know you need to follow us on social media. We've got Instagram, we've got Twitter, and new this year, we have TikTok. So go follow us on TikTok at the Pigskin Cafe. Shout out to Graham's better half, Shelby Haney, for getting those posted for us. We truly do appreciate it. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell so you know anytime an episode drops. Leave us a like, leave us a comment on this video, and we appreciate all the support so far this year, and we're just getting started. Chase, Graham, and I should be back later this week to preview week 2, but the Pigskin Cafe is going to close for now. But until next time, chew on that.